All right, well, good morning and welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage. All right, well, first of all, good morning to, let's see who is in the house. Comments and suggestions, come on. All right, well, everybody's... there we go. Mario, good morning to you. Thanks for jumping in. Sonia, hello. Great to see you. Guten Morgen, or good evening, however you say that. Zach Lee, got a little something special kind of in mind for you and my buddy Spencer today. Because we're heading over a little bit into the Line 6 universe and want to talk about a couple of things. Also going to be talking about kind of preparing for playing live, especially if you're kind of doing something where you have a bunch of material that you need to get together pretty quickly. First of all, just want to thank everybody for tuning in. And of course, we know what time it is. It is time to raise them up. So do me a favor, let me know what it is that you are drinking down there in the chat. I don't know. I just love doing this because I love doing it. So I got a little bit of my protein drink here and a shot or two of espresso. Tony, yeah, guten Morgen, brother. Great to see you, my dear friend. Hello. Mario, I had just one question going back to the Satch Vitor. Boy, that's going to be a little small if you're on a mobile device. I noticed they're still using cabs. Steve almost pulled out his phone a number of times. Why are they not going wireless? Okay, great range of questions, but I'm going to do something before I get to your really great question. Sonia, this is for you. So last week you asked about 3-octave scales. And so I walked through the old Joe Satriani, that guy, but I was thinking, as I was kind of hanging out this morning noodling, there is a better way. And that's taking literally just kind of pairs of strings. And literally you're just kind of going. And what's neat about this is, and I realize I'm not going direct today, so the sound will not be all crystalline because I'm got a kind of a little bit of a different rig going on that I want to talk through, especially for my buddy Zach Lee and my buddy Spencer. So, Cherry Coke, I love that. Dive in. Divided in 6, yes. And what's kind of happening is if you think about taking the 6th and 5th strings of the G major scale and the 5th and 4th of the A Dorian and the 4th and 3rd of B Phrygian and the 3rd and 2nd of C Lydian, and I guess that would get us to the 2nd and 1st of D mixed Lydian. And that gives us a nice framework to be able to climb up and down the neck. Awesome. Thank you for that, because that's going to appear in lots of places that I love to be sharing information. As a bunch of you know, I've been rambling on about this 15-minute fundamentals business that is temporarily The production date has been pushed out a little bit because I'm still developing the content for that. And really, what's going on? John, always a pleasure, my friend. Good morning to you from across the bay. And the idea is that I kind of went from one 15-minute workout, and I kind of went, that's just not going to be enough. So basically, it's going to be a range of 5 workouts across 5 days that are really designed to hit all the things that are passionate to me as a music educator. And we'll leave it at that. Andrew Bonica, hello, my dear friend. The funny thing is, I think you know that helix right there. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for tuning in, my dear friend. We need to catch up. I think about you way more than I reach out. And the funny thing is, as we kind of get into the rig side of this thing, this is going to be kind of going down a bit of memory lane for you. So, all right, let me unpack kind of what one of the key goals for me today is for you. There are a bunch of us that, first of all, live in the modeling universe or traverse back and forth between it. I spend an increasing amount of time, believe it or not, in the Mesa Boogie world. And with that said, I love the way that Cab Clone IR is now built into my number one amplifier. It means that I can, when I want to use cabinets, and there are a few cabinets around, I can use them. But the great thing is there are great models, impulse responses of those cabinets built into this guy, which I absolutely love. It's kind of all my favorite things. It means that I can go direct, I can have the click up, I can have the backing tracks going on, so on and so forth. That reminds me, I did not finish Mario's question. I need to start writing this down. I made a note to myself, write it down, and I didn't actually bring a piece of paper to do that. So Mario, there is an ongoing conversation. Thank you very much, Andrew. Yes, those blue cables, we're going to get to those in just a moment, but I want to jump in with Mario real quick. Spencer, good morning. I know you can only stay until 1:30, so we got lots of stuff for you. Mario had asked about this whole kind of in-ear monitor and wireless thing and kind of the state of the art thing. So one of the interesting things about kind of watching what Joe and Steve are doing is there's a kind of a modernization of kind of what they're doing in that, they're both using in-ear monitors, which is, I knew that at some point Steve would go to them, and I figured that at some point Joe would go to them. But the interesting thing about the New York show that I went to is there was a problem with Joe's wah-wah. It just died in the middle of the show, and it took his pedal board with it. And so literally he just plugged straight into the amp, and it sounded amazing. I have been on stage with Larry Mitchell, who I adore dearly, and his wireless decided to give up the ghost right then and there. And in the midst of all the things that can go right and go wrong, when you have a signal chain that is tried and true, and you plug the cable in and it works, then that's it. So I know way more about the nuance of your question than I am at liberty to say, and we'll just leave it there because it would be inappropriate for me to share the intimate details of what I know about that. I know that, Philip Bino from Steve's band, I don't know if he's currently using it, but I know he was using the Line 6 wireless for a bunch of time. I know that Thomas Nordegg, although he's Douglas MacArthur is now Steve's go-to guitar tech, I know Thomas is a big proponent of the Line 6 wireless as well. I actually, having watched Larry's wireless go belly up in the middle of a set, kind of went, me and this cable, I know that if the cable goes out, I'm going to know pretty well. And I mentioned this last week. When I have a suspect cable, I start wrapping some piece of tape around it. Or if it's a speaker cable that I get a little suspicious, I'll actually tie a little knot in that. So there we have that. All right. So, Braden, what's going on? There you go. I finally made it. Dr. Phil, what's going on, my dear friend? Bonafide, purified H2O. You know what? I can do that. Come on, raise them up. Guitar time. I love that. Come on. I got a whole boogie showroom in there. You have no idea. So yes, you do actually. Sorry, I'm not being snarky. All right. Hopefully, Guitar Time meets with previous Guitar Church owner. All right, awesome, 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 fabulous. Okay, so let me just unpack where I'm going with all of this. Bobby Valdez, good morning to you, my friend. How'd the relaxation work for you this week? Let me know in the chat there. All right, so part of what I do, and I'm always really careful about how I go about sharing this because, we live in a day and an age, if you kind of have seen of any of what's going on at maybe the college campuses across the United States where people are very vocal about whatever it is that they are feeling. Let's not go there other than to say that I'm always very careful to kind of keep my personal views. There we go. Come on, bring the good old lime Gatorade. I love that. When I play a show, by the way, pretty much after the show, if I'm kind of going to a convenience store, I'm always headed for some Gatorade just to kind of power back up. So part of what I do is I'm the editorial director for Worship Musician Magazine. It, amongst other things, gives me incredible access to great people and great gear. So as an end result, I kind of walk into NAMM and I, either as a player in the mainstream or in conjunction with a worship musician, I know a huge number of people in the building. The vast majority are extremely cool. And so around all that, I got to know a bunch of the folks at Line 6. And I've done a bunch of work for them where they paid me really, really well to do the launch of the Dream Rig, which was the HD500, the DT series amps, as well as Andrew Bonica, who used to be the manager of the Variax guitar program. So the point being, product owner, I think, is Line 6Es for that terminology. So I'm going to get back to you in just a moment, Bob, because we're going to dig in on that. So also, from time to time, I play at church. So I go to this little baby church, not big in stature, but amazing people who are just awesome. So I'm playing tomorrow, and about 5 or 6 in the morning, I'll be up rehearsing. And regardless of whether it's for church or whatever, there are a bunch of things that I'm doing around that I think that will be valuable for anybody that goes like, I got to learn a bunch of material. What's that process? And kind of what are some of the great in-the-box solutions? In particular, Spencer had asked about, he's got the old Dream Rig, basically, which is the HD500 or the HD500X, and the DT series amps. And I actually have 3 of those that are currently on consignment at Bananas Music over in San Rafael. 3 half stacks because I'm kind of, I don't have the space for them, and the generation of gear has kind of aged out. So the thing is that Spencer's question was very specifically, his HD500 and the DT series amps are no longer supported by Line 6 in the way that they once were. Not that Line 6 doesn't provide support, but they are no longer, they're so not current as product. What do you do when your technology begins to age out? So Spencer, specifically for you, I have put together my Helix rig with a pair of Power Cab Pluses. And the great thing about this rig, they are absolutely amazing. For anybody who doesn't know, the DT series amps were designed by Reinhold Bogner. They basically have analog modeling, much like the Mesa Boogie does here, of kind of classic preamp sections, and also it reconfigures the power amp section. So again, there are people that are doing things in the analog realm that are genius, and the DT series amps were great. They also came with these great 412 cabinets with a vintage 30 and a proprietary Line 6 90-watt speaker in an X pattern, and those were great sounding cabinets. The other thing is you could take the direct out and go front of house, and they sounded great, which again, many of us are faced with the same problems. Like, okay, if we're going to go in the box, how do we make the box loud, and how do we deal with, again, getting back... I know a guy with a van. So hold on. There you go. Mario, how do we deal with this? Like, we're in the box, we're in ears, we're listening to the monitors. What are some of the ways that we deal with all of that? Because for people that play, the majority of us play small to medium-sized venues, getting a wireless mix going in that environment, one, takes a lot of time when it compared to the amount of time you're rushing your gear on stage, you're doing a sound check, of all the things you're trying to figure out, getting your IEMs wired in a small venue that doesn't necessarily have a great PA, it's kind of a losing value proposition. So that said, the best round trip solution, specifically to Spencer's question, hands down, since you've already been in the Line 6 universe, Helix, and not one but two power cabs. Those suckers get crazy loud. There is also Power Cab 212, I think it's called, and that's 500 watts. It's basically a stereo version of it. I personally enjoy having the single cabinets because they're not quite as big, and you can kind of move one if you just want to play in mono. So the neat thing about this is Andrew mentioned the fancy pants blue cables here, and I get a chance to give a big shout out to a guy named Marcus Ryle. I believe he was involved. Well, first of all, he did a bunch of things. He invented the ADAT. He also invented a spec. If you have any Sony home stereo gear, a little bit older now, but it came with a digital connection. It was shown a little laser through there. That's called light pipe, and he developed that spec for the ADAT so you could send multi-track digital information along that interface, or I should say that connector. Genius guy. And this is basically using the AES spec, I believe, on kind of a more traditional balanced XLR cable to create something called L6 link. And this is Line 6's proprietary way of sending digital information from Helix to the power cabs there. So you're not doing any analog to digital conversion coming out of the back of the Helix. And so you're offloading that to the power cabs that my buddy Brendan Franzel developed with a team of people, but Brandon, genius of a guy. And so at one point sooner than later, one of the things I'm probably going to do is create a series of wet, dry, wet rigs, and one of which is going to be using not just these two power cabs, but also adding the Power Cab 212 in the midst of all that. I'm also going to do it with traditional analog rigs and different power amps, so people can have some different approaches of kind of, this is how I do it. I think I'm also going to do it, and it's arrived here. There is the new generation of catalysts, and those little amps are fabulous. And so I actually have two of the old ones, and I'm going to set up a wet, dry, wet rig because I just kind of love to do it, because one of the things about wet, dry, wet is traditionally there's a lot of gear involved and it starts to get expensive really quickly. Well, the price of 3 catalysts isn't that much, and they each have a power amp in of the effects loop, and then you can use one as the master and then kind of either use the effects that are in there or use the effects loop to kind of create a stereo send that goes to the other 2 cabinets. There are some tricks there that we'll be able to kind of walk through all of that. So so Spencer, again, the challenge that you're having, and ironically, the pastor at my church, he's having a problem with, it's actually his Helix. He's having a challenge around the USB connection. It stopped working. So there is a place called CAE Sound here in the San Francisco Bay Area, but there aren't that many places that work on this digital technology. So the idea is, as it starts to age out, it does become a little bit of a problem. So if you're looking for a Line 6 in the box, and this is the thing, as I will say before I kind of move on, is I think for an all-inclusive 360-degree solution, there is nothing on the market that really touches what you can do collectively with Helix and Power Cab. Now, I actually have a Kemper over there, and I do not have the Kemper Cab, I think was what they call that. But I can tell you, what Marcus has done with his L6 link and the ability to, in those different cabinets, rather than just sending whatever IR I choose to send through Helix here, I can, using L6 link, because it will also not only carry the quote-unquote audio signal, it will also send MIDI information. So I can have those change to different IRs on a preset by preset basis. So say, for example, I want to bring up an AC30 model. Well, ideally on one side, I'm going to put a Celestian green and a Celestian blue on the other side. So that's one of the ways that you can kind of create this nice 1 amp, 2 different cabinets environment that gives you this nice kind of depth of field. This is one of the special things about just playing in stereo to begin with. It just kind of adds a little bit of what I like to say is when you're using two different speakers on either side, not two different cabinets with the same speakers, but different ones, they kind of open and close a little bit if you think about the envelope of how they respond to different frequencies across the spectrum. And blending speakers together is a big deal. All right, so there is that. Headstock Harem. Eric, first of all, hello. Great to see you. Good morning. All right, good. There we go. Headstock Harem. Coffee now using Headrush Prime at church with my IEM Line 6 G10 wireless. Died recently too. We'll say a quick word for your wireless. The sad reality is that digital gear has a life cycle, as does analog gear. So we just want to be careful. That's, again, one of the reasons why as soon as something starts to get suspect, I start to label things. So I kind of go, did I hear a crackle? Did I hear something? And then I'm kind of like, if I thought I did, I need to check it. Brandon Franzel, I was on that team, dude. Oh, awesome. Well, dude, those cabinet. Well, oh, right. That's right. Sorry. We have so much history between the guitar camps and I don't know, when you were in Iraq and you bought the Guitar 411 DVD and decades of friendship at this point. Oh, there we go. All right. Awesome. There we go. Yes, I wasn't going to mention anything about the manual. We'll just leave it there. Still running my X3 Live with some pedals, but the old still works fine. So here's the thing. So as a slight contradiction, digital stuff does wear out. The great thing about stuff that's really well made, and generally speaking, none of my Line 6 gear has ever failed on me. Nothing. And a bunch of it at this point is a couple decades old. And I think it's great. So awesome. Bobby, are you using the Helix power cabs that don't have to be as great question. So there are 3 flavors of power cab. And one of the things you can tell on one of these days, I'm going to get my left and right on camera. That little kind of icon there that you can kind of see on both cabinets, one's kind of a little bit more reflective than the other, indicates a Power Cab Plus. And those are the ones that not only have built-in IRs, but you can also load IRs in there, and you can use them in a mode where you use them for full range playback of your track. So if you needing to rehearse, or for example, this is actually another great use. And by the way, there's a piece of gear that I'll be doing a video for called Spark Live from my good friends over at Positive Grid that I've now got up on a pole. And because I'm kind of in the middle of shooting a video, in addition to the live stream today, nothing's getting moved. I'm just like, when the set is the set, it's set. But there'll be some content around that because it's basically in a small box, give you this nice stereo image when you turn it on its side. And then it's got their technology, so on and so forth. So the thing, and that allows you to kind of run models and also run tracks. So again, one of the things about Power Cab is that you can then use an aux in to play along with tracks, be it backing tracks out of my favorite go-to, it's up at the top of the stairs, a Boss Looper, if you kind of need to jam along with tracks, which is another use for these. They're great. And I've been just super impressed with how they are. There are some other solutions that are on the market, but I like this form factor because if you kind of look at it, it really looks a lot like kind of a deluxe reverb. So they specifically took an enclosure that was guitar response friendly when they did that, as opposed to a wedge. At the risk of being slightly rude, I've never really enjoyed getting a wedgie. Most of the time, I'd say 95% of the time I've ever played with a fallback monitor, I did not like the sound that was coming out of it. That was House of Blues in maybe Dallas. Great sound on stage. And then there's a venue called the Underground in London that if I could have taken those fallback monitors home with me, I would have. I was like, I was in heaven. Whoever designed those loved guitar players. They just sounded great. Spencer, with great pleasure. We got 4 minutes before you got to jump out of here, but that should answer your big questions. Yeah, Bobby. So the great thing is you can use they come with a range of different IRs. I also have one of the just regular power cabs as well. But again, there's 3 flavors. Power Cab Plus, which is a 112 configuration, I believe 250 watts. And then you can load your own IRs, or there's a whole range of IRs that are built in there, and it has an XLR out, so you can go direct out of that. Once you've loaded whichever IR that you're hearing, load that out into the PA, for example. And then there's the Power Cab 212, which has all of that, but has got two 12-inch speakers. And I may actually end up using that for the wet, dry, wet rig rather than just the regular Power Cab 112, because what that will allow me to do is get a stereo image of my dry signal, and it's what I love to call wet, dry, wet. Kind of cool. So yeah, sorry about the death of your wireless. The Boss stuff is great. It's all great. You can connect up to 4 DT amps with L6 link. That I think you probably told me that at one point. And the reason I bought 3 of them, I was going to do a wet, dry, wet rig, but I had these 3 half stacks. It sounds a little extreme, but I had these 3 half stacks sitting around, and I was so far away from doing anything with them, and I needed the space, so off they went. Okay, let me make sure I didn't miss anything. So Bobby, the relaxation works, but it's really hard to implement when you dig in pretty hard when you're playing the blues. Here's the thing is that, I was saying to, and it might have been last week. Is that when I'm playing blues style playing, my thumbs are over the top of the neck, and I'm grabbing this thing literally with enough force that I could pick it up. I might encourage you to see how, if in fact you're actually, this is really funny, I need to talk about, and I'm making notes, the 15-minute fundamental thing. I am just a note-taking lunatic. Blues hand position, but not tensioning fingers. So it may be that when you're bringing your hand over the top of the neck, I'm grabbing, my fingers are still loose. Now this is interesting. The thumb and the first finger are grabbing with a fair amount of tension, but in terms of my fingers, those guys remain pretty loose. So, and I have got a little grab going on with the hand as well, but I'm not fist grabbing. So you might want to just kind of go, hey, if I'm kind of, again, you're going to bring the thumb around the top of the neck for that leverage. We can get rid of that for right now. I would also kind of watch some of your favorite blues players and take a look at their left hand as they're kind of digging in and kind of go, hey, what are some of the things that I can see they're doing as they're managing the neck and kind of digging in, but still staying loose enough that they're able to not feel like they're tensing up. Keep me posted on that, please, because that's important. All right, now, as I mentioned, really? Okay, so time below the SUV. Happy Saturday, Spencer. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that was a help. I got some. I missed a couple of folks. Hang on a second. Okay. And I will be talking about kind of preparation, regardless of what it's for. And the stand will remind me to do that. Eric, what about taking the cabs out of the equation? Would you recommend digital modeling going direct into PA? Absolutely. So this is an interesting. There's nuance to this. So here we go. Tomorrow. First of all, I'm a stereo fanatic. When and where I can run a stereo image, whether it's, I generally am not using 2 amps to get 2 different sounds that much these days. But over there is the Mesa Boogie California Tweed, and I think if I do this, there we go, and over there, you've got there we go, that Gibson GA20. And so the thing about that is that those two together in stereo as two different amps work really well together. So there are times, and the guys at that pedal show have a bunch of videos on mixing different amplifiers together. So there's magic that can happen where they really complement each other really well. That said, the ability to get a stereo image is one of the ways, especially when there's a vocalist in the mix, to be on either side. So you're clearing that center lane. This is further nuanced if you're playing with a keyboardist. Keyboards, especially in a worship setting, have a tendency to be stereo across the entire spectrum. So you're trying to find a space that you can hide from, being in the middle of where the vocals are to the stereo wash of the keyboards. So where you're going to go, my solution is to generally kind of go stereo left and right with either two different amp models, or in terms of saving CPU, one amp, so you just have one thing to control, that digitally that is, and then two different cabinets, one maybe with a green or a blue, or one amp, one cabinet, stereo delay, dotted eighth and quarter note. So the danger of that, and as I finished rehearsal the other night, the guy that's going to be doing sound tomorrow kind of went, hey, our church is kind of small. We don't have enough inputs on the board for you to run in stereo, so you're going to be running in mono. So I'm like, my plan just kind of went out the window. So what happens when you've built your world around stereo, specifically to try and create space for the lead vocalist that's the main attraction, then all of a sudden you're kind of like, you kind of lose your options, and it's a but you put on a happy face and go, sure. So that is to say, there are and so at the end of rehearsal, the tech came up to me and said, like, well, how are you going, what's your plan on it? Because they, saw the power cab, and there's enough there. It's like, where are they going to get the tap of that? Is microphones? No. So the thing is, I said, we're just going to use the two XLRs out of the back of Helix. So that was kind of when the conversation went, really, we've only got one input for you because of the number of other things that are happening on the platform, as it's called. So, as I kind of am up early tomorrow morning, I'm going to be taking a listen to what happens when I bring my signal down into mono. And as I learned from my buddy Brian Wall the other day, and I didn't know this and should have, that when you have a stereo signal using the left and right outputs of Helix, when you bring it down to just one output, it automatically sums it to mono. And usually if you're using dotted eighth and quarter on the opposite extremes, left hand, left and right, you end up with a little bit too much delay. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But that signal will always be what I'm going out into the PA from. And I'm not going to be using the power cabs. That's a really, really good question. If I were using the power cabs in that environment, I still would be coming out of Helix straight into the PA, simply because there's XLRs that are kind of right there, up where they're used to kind of potentially grabbing something, if I'd been an acoustic guitar player and had, there was a DI right there as opposed to something that's maybe a little bit more on the back line. Great question. Oh, dude. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Congratulations. I'm really glad you got a chance to go. What an amazing, amazing tour. The Mega Dream Rig. Oh, with pleasure. I can help. That's awesome, man. Awesome. So, again, this is one of the things that I'm going to do, because I finally have this room to the point where I can actually shoot video. So the past couple of days, I've actually been shooting a video. So this whole gear side of thing is something that I'm very passionate about, and also helping other guitar players kind of make sense of this. So one of the videos I'm going to do is on kind of like choosing your best form factor for your modeling device. For some folks, it's something as small as is possible that you can stick in the cubby of your guitar gig bag, and you're into the BA. For other folks, they want to actually be able to capture their favorite amplifiers. That's one of the things that the Line 6 universe has not enabled me to do, and it's really kind of frustrating, because I wish that was available inside their architecture, and hopefully kind of their next gen, and I don't know anything about it, but hopefully their next gen will allow you to capture it. And I literally, I've been kind of on them for at least 5 years saying, it would be really great if you did this. But they also know their audience pretty well, and maybe I'm not their average person, but my being able to capture all these amps. The neural DSP stuff is great, but again, if you want to hear yourself, how are you going to amplify that? But the capture technology in that, literally the first time out, I captured the Jose Arredondo modded Marshall that's here, and I literally, all right, let me just plug it into a Waza Tube amp expander. Let's capture it, and literally, like, in a minute and a half and 2 minutes, it sounded like the amp. I was like, wow, just great. I don't like the wall wart, and one of the things that is on my list of kind of like form factor things about all this technology is I don't want a wall wart. I want an IEC cable that no matter where I am, if I forget the power supply, I'm good to go. But that's just me. But again, if you've ever, I don't know, been someplace and you forgot your power supply for your laptop, you kind of go, you're kind of thinking about the wrong thing instead of kind of like, again, if you don't have the power supply, let me rephrase, as a person that's played with tracks, one of the things that sometimes you're going to do is you're going to use the laptop. Well, if you don't have the power supply for your laptop, you're kind of sitting there watching the battery slowly draining, kind of going, at what point does my battery die? Or I used to tour back in the day in the aughts with an iPod. And those things, if you didn't have enough charge, you're again watching that battery kind of drain. So that was a constant thing. So the form factor, what's the relative size? How many foot switches do you actually want? Kind of my favorite kind of form factor in the Line 6 world is the Helix Stomp XL. And ironically, I was on the phone on a video call with Eric Klein, who's kind of the lead architect for Helix at Line 6. And I was like, it would be really great if you could take HX Stomp and it was the Morningstar MC6 and build a form factor. And Eric was like, well, take a look at this. And so, and I think he actually sent me his personal HX Stomp XL before it was released. And they're just, that form factor is really nice. It's small, but not too small. I have a dog that's barking, and I think I have a door that's open. So let me just fix this because it's going to drive me bonkers. So I apologize for going off frame, but, well, the door is closed, but hang on a second. Mel, can you do something about the dog? Oh, hey. I'm back, and the barking dog has stopped. All right. Hello. Well, it wouldn't be a show if I didn't run off frame at least once. All right. So I hope that answers the various questions that folks might have, and I'm going to keep an eye on this. Oh. Okay, hang on a second. Oh, my word. What? That's hilarious. Hang on a second. Jim, just got rained out from working on my new back porch, so I guess I'll get a guitar lesson. And we got some stuff to go over. At the back side of things, I'm not going to go super long today. One of the things that, before I jump back into the gear side, Mike, what's going on? There is there's a thing called SoFi, do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, do. And so that's very popular at the Berklee College of Music. And in the entire 3.5 years that I was studying with Joe Satriani, we talked about it 0 times. And you know how many times we talked about Cage system? 0 times. We spent a lot of time talking about scale degree numbers and intervals. And the interesting thing is, as I'm kind of, again, ramping up for this 15-minute fundamentals thing, there's some software out there called, what are you called? You are called Neck Diagrams 2. And I can see that Rhett Schull uses it and a bunch of other folks, because what they do is, in addition to potentially having a finger number, they also have the interval for the chord. That is to say, if I played this G major chord, whose notes are G, B, and D, and if I took the G major scale, whose notes are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, and I took that G, B, and D, that would be the 1, 3, and 5. And if I played the 1 and 3 together, or played them separately, that interval, the distance between two notes, is a major third. And if I took the 1 and 5 and played them as an interval or as a dyad, that's a perfect fifth. So if you can hear those intervals, it will be helpful for being able to identify stuff and construct chords. But if I put together this chord here, I want to think of how the individual notes are functioning in the key. And rather than thinking about the elements of a chord intervallically, it's helpful to be able to kind of go, all right, well, there's the perfect fifth, the octave, major third, or major tenth, as Rick Beato would say, perfect fifth, an octave. But the thing is that if you're starting to think about that intervallically, well, this is where it becomes a little bit of a problem as you begin to kind of place it in the framework of a scale. That is to say, if I'm thinking about this relationship right there and this relationship right there, well, that interval, those are both minor seconds. That's really cute, but it tells me no information about what scale degree number those particular notes are functioning as. So in the bigger picture, think of this as a 1 5 1 3 5 1, and this is a 1 5 1 flat 3 5 1. If I know this is a 1 and a flat 3, I know that interval is a minor third. If that's the 1 and 5 still, that interval is going to be a perfect fifth. But the challenge of kind of getting glued to seeing those individual notes expressed as intervals, while it's really good to think of what's going on intervallically, if you think about the way notes are written in a scale, G, A, B, G, A, B flat, you begin to think about, yes, you can look at the interval between the G and the B and the G and the B flat, but if you think about G, A, B as 1, 2, 3 and G, A, B flat as 1, 2, flat 3, you're beginning to kind of have a better way of hearing how we play guitar, because guess what? Yes, we play chords, but my guess is when you sit down at your favorite guitar and plug in your favorite lead tone, you're not playing chords. You're going to probably walk into... And if you don't have a framework for being able to... So now the interesting thing is by thinking about things in scale degree number and being able to recognize them, I can recognize it as a perfect fourth, but this note is functioning as the 4 in the key of E Dorian. And so that intervallic relationship is happening, but by thinking about it here, you'd be much better off thinking about this is 1 5 1 3 5 1, and seeing that relationship right there is a fifth. That relationship right there is a fourth. That relationship there is a third. That's a third, and that's a fourth. So you can kind of see the internal relationships. But the thing is that by just kind of, instead of seeing it as scale degree numbers, we kind of start to box ourselves in. Because if we say, all right, there's my 1 3 and 5. There's my 1 2 5, my 1 4 5. 1 3 5, 1 3 4, 1 3 6. So we're beginning to, as we're building chords, if we're kind of only thinking about what the interval relationship is to the root, we kind of start to box ourselves in. And there's more coming on that later. In regards to using power cabs but keeping a quiet stage, definitely expands the DSP capabilities of Helix. So Mike, so there invariably will be fractal content coming. Which fractal content? I tell you what, this is in the longer range plan. But one of the things that happened was I was hired. I was brought in by Line 6 in Sweetwater to create, and Andrew Monica was a huge help on this with me. Basically, it's a Helix training course we called Helix University for Helix for worship guitar players. And there have been like 1,500 people that have gone through that training course. And it was made available so people could get it for free. That was kind of the goal with that. If I charged $40 for that course, 1,500 times 40, you start doing the math. I'm like, that's the thing, though. It's a lot of what I do. Like, Saturdays, I really enjoy contributing to the community because I think communities are a big part of what make music so special. And if you're not contributing, then you're a leech. So now I'm not calling anybody here a leech. Don't. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there are, the idea is if we're not contributing back to the people that are around us and contributing in ways that we can, then we're consumers, and I can tell by the vibe of the people that hear backpedaling just a little bit. But the thing is that for me, if all I do is kind of go, well, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Then I am a leech, and I can't do that. It's definitely a wall of amps. Thank you very much. All right, got to run and edit my video for a new podcast. Awesome. Cool. There we go. Oh, there we go. Steve, I would love to know more about your rig. Perfect timing. Good morning. Great to see you. Always a pleasure. So, in case y'all don't know, Steve, let's see if I can point in the right direction. That amp right there used to belong to my brother Steve there. That is a Mark II C+. That is the amp of amps for those of us who speak boogie, and I just love this. Oh, awesome, David. Thank you very, 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 very much. Steve McFarland. I don't know if you know or if you follow worship tutorials or know Brian Wall, but he did an excellent video recently where he made the point that new digital units don't make older units sound bad. The old units still sound good, sound the same, and good is good. Even HD and XC units have their place now. Glad Line 6 brought in the legacy stuff to the HX platform. That is a mouthful, and I love that. So Brian Wall is a dear friend, and part of why the light, and this is actually kind of my live stream version of this, but Brian is my camera and lighting guru. He is just, and he's a dear friend, and I absolutely adore him. And he's also sprouting a ton of amps the last time I looked at their set. So yeah, the worship tutorial guys are great. Actually, when we did this thing for Helix, they actually provided a bunch of free presets, and Andrew and I did the Helix University. The silkscreen says left mono. Reminder that back in the day of Helix, the silkscreen says left mono. Aha! Okay, Bobby, in my opinion, it would be foolish for Helix not to include the IR download availability. Tonex products are a good competitor and motivator for Helix to do so. Well, first of all, yes, so there are some hacks where you can actually create some tone match types of things and bring them into Helix, but we'll speak to that in another time. When will I be able to see you live? Great question. First of all, thank you. Second of all, I am in the midst of finishing 2 albums, and also in the midst of kind of threading the needle, getting this place back up and running, creating content. Because ultimately, there are 3 main things that I'm doing. 1, finishing 2 albums, vocal album and instrumental album. And the instrumental thing is a great vehicle for me to go out and play live, which is going to be happening, especially once it's done. And hopefully the vocal album as well. 2, content creation is very, very important in terms of video, Instagram, all of that, YouTube. And then the course material. And so the idea of threading all those needles at the same time has taken a little bit of time. So I look forward to doing that sooner than later. Thank you. There we go. I got a gig and had a broken ground pin on the IEC cable. 2 blocks down was an Ace Hardware, fixed. Try that with a power supply. Point well taken. This is, and in a moment I'm going to go back to gig preparedness. Solfege, SoFi is a loan company, and the owner of the LA region. There you go. Solfege, thank you. And your Joe scale degree number approaches golden. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, here's the thing is that I was thinking about this. My favorite ideas is I'm kind of thinking about Saturday come to me while I'm in the shower. And I'm probably going to go, there are a couple of videos I'm going to make is like why I never use caged and why I never use solfege. because I'm not going to take the bait on that this morning, but I'm very tempted. Braden, off topic on a Strat, would you use, oh, there we go. Speaking my love language. Believe it or not, that's me playing a Strat, and absolutely. Let's grab Pinky real quick. All right, come here. So the whole thing that he's asking about, in case you don't own a Strat, and these are the sorts of questions that are, are conversations that I just absolutely love. So the thing is that this tone control normally does not control the bridge pickup when you're all the way down in the, what I like to call the number 1 position. Some folks call that the number 5 position. Where do we spend most of our time when we're rocking out? If we're blues guys, maybe in the neck, but the point being is that this tone control working on, okay, first of all, it's one of the most interesting things about a Strat is that, if you think about bringing your right hand closer to the bridge and further away from the bridge, hey, Eric, it gets brighter the closer you are to the bridge and less bright the further you are away. Hence, bridge pickup, bright. Neck pickup, not so bright. So when you're the bridge, Leo did the strange thing. He's like, hey, let me make the treble strings even brighter. I'm like, okay. He must have been thinking something. He's obviously gone, so I will never have a chance to ask him. But the ability, and this is not a traditional stock thing, and I used to call it the Eric Johnson mod, to have the ability to have this tone control cover the bridge pickup is an absolute must, and this guitar has that, and I just love it. And yes, it is absolutely kind of an essential thing, and I absolutely, unless it's a vintage Strat and you don't want to mess with the wiring harness because it does affect the for the purists out there, but that's kind of an essential mod on a Strat. It's kind of like if there was one thing I was going to do out of all of them, absolute starting place, hands down. And so there you have it. I see my buddy Rick is hanging out. He's popped in, so well, here I am wandering around again. I kind of enjoy it because it's kind of one of the things, you're not supposed to step off frame, but this is one of my best rhythm guitars. It's a great lead guitar, but this is in the world of great rhythm guitars. So this is an RH Custom, my buddy Rick Harrison. Where are you, Rick? There you go. Good morning, Ricky. So hey, so this guitar is just one of my favorite rhythm instruments. It's a great lead guitar, but first of all, it is, and I don't usually go for, looks, but if you were purely going on the looks basis, you kind of go, gorgeous. And so what happened is I met Rick at Orange County Guitar Show, and I kind of had that guitar there, and I was like, you kind of look over and you kind of go, wow, what a beautiful instrument. But I plugged it in, and it's actually sounds even better than it looks. So figured I would give that a little something, and rumor has it might be in one of the demos on this video that I'm working on. Who knows? The shadow knows. All right. So let's see here. Since we're talking about gear, how much backup gear do you take to a gig? What a great question. Gosh. So interesting. Hang on a second. First of all, yes, I love that Strat. And the funny thing is, Melissa's like, pink guitar. Didn't see that coming. I absolutely love that guitar. All right, Ivan. So this is a very interesting conversation. And for those of you that are on a mobile device, the font's going to be like a half a point. Personally, never use the tone controls. To me, it's a make it sound dull knob, and definitely prefer guitars with only one volume pots. Very biased opinion, of course, but it's what it is. Well, first of all of us, no matter who we are, have some very set opinions. And again, if I say sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that there are things that I believe that sometimes I've kind of gone, for me, I kind of went, well, I got that wrong. Now, that said, there is a lot to be said about like, hey, you know what? I don't have a tone control. It's just the volume. It's just going straight out. And the more things you put in between the pickup and the output jack, everything is going to act like a filter to one extent or another. It's going to create a little bit of use the word loose. It will load the signal to one extent or another, and it will to one extent or another change the tone, even if your tone control is all the way up. And that's probably, again, one of the reasons Leo Fender did not have, wait for it, a tone control on the bridge pickup. He was like, let me just make this thing as ice-picky as I possibly can. So for me, this isn't the best setup to do it in, the ability to roll off that tone control, I can get the exact sound that I'm looking for with, well, put your guitar where your mouth is. Let's see if I can demonstrate that, because and actually, here's the other interesting things, and so it depends. First of all, Ivan, it depends on your rig, and it depends on the style of music that you play, because that obviously is going to, wrong type of jack, but that's okay. But this will get the job done. So here's just the bridge position. Oh wait, we're not. So there's a little bit of, and it's again, it's just coming through the mic, so it's not going to be that little bit of a little bit of Eric Johnson-y bit you get when you roll off. And again, he's a guy that does not like to. So my ability to kind of get that really kind of almost fluty type of a sound. As Eric would say, a violin tone. And for me, I kind of call it the saxy tone. Hey, what's going on, Daniel? How you doing? Very much Becky. I should say thank you, but very much Beck that I'm trying to go for there, right? So for that particular type of playing, and Beck is a great example, so thanks for that, constantly messing with the volumes and the tones to find all those shades in between. But if, let me guess, maybe, or Ivan, my guess is maybe you're a little bit more in the metal-y side of things, in which case, you need that clarity, even though it's ironically distortion and clarity, but you want that clear, that clear high end, really making sure it doesn't get compromised. So I totally get that. It's a really great point, and a really nice fit for some of the stuff that I'm thinking about. So thank you for that. All right, I was going to say that I was going to talk about preparedness. Sorry, I didn't finish answering that question. Sorry, I went down the rabbit trail. How much backup gear do I take to a gig? Great question. So I have a second Flying V that it's black. It's the same exact model, but has not had all the customization done on it yet. It's actually at Gary Brower's right now, having different pickups put in it. And it's going to have a slightly different pickup set. This guitar is extremely reliable. So only broken a string on it once during a set. It was at a clinic in Florida, and it was kind of a funny thing that happened is that they were a Gibson dealer. It was Larry and Chris Cisneros, Larry Mitchell, and I kind of literally was in the middle of, I think, my set, and I broke it, and I didn't have a backup because I only take one guitar with me to the Vi Academy, and this series of clinics was right after that. And so I was like, hey, can you get me a guitar off the wall? And they brought me this Les Paul. It was this great guitar. And I was like, if I take this home, I'm going to be sleeping on the couch. So that didn't happen, but it was kind of a happy accident. It sounded great. And then they fixed that string. So the moral of the story is, the funny thing is I've got a young student that I'm teaching, Gabriel. He's 14, and he was getting ready to go to an open mic and play. And I don't know whether he did, but, he and I had this whole conversation about, if he was going to use tracks, what he might and might not expect. And we unpacked it kind of like, you're going into an environment where there's so many unknowns, there's a lot that you don't know. So I encouraged him to just go and kind of watch the open mic and kind of see what's there, watch the PA, watch the interaction between the different people, and so on and so forth. I asked him if he had a hot swappable backup guitar. And when I was touring opening for Schenker, I had a second head. My buddy Matty, who's John Petrucci's guitar tech, there was a speaker that blew in the middle of a Dream Theater set, and Matty crawled out on the stage with an extra speaker and actually swapped a speaker mid-set. So they had some extra Celestine speakers there. If you're not prepared for something to go wrong, you will get bit. So I always have an extra set of strings in the cubby of the guitar case. I always bring extra cables. It's interesting, Chris, always a pleasure, by the way, about having an extra IEC cable. I've never had one of those break, but I step on cables from time to time accidentally, and the little prongs do get bent. I haven't had one break. But it's something to think about. And I amongst other things, what I didn't get a chance to do for today is I put together, and especially when I'm getting ready to go one of the guitar camps, I'll put together a gear list, because worse than not having a backup if something fails, what do you do if you forget something? You end up at the gig and you forget your whammy bar or an extra set of strings or your guitar picks. So there's a shelf, a little kind of pull-out shelf that's in this rack that I keep a number of my hot swappable backup things, extra cables, extra picks. There should be, but there isn't, an extra slide in there in case I'm feeling slippery. And so I kind of am of the mindset, like, it's not if something is going to go wrong, it's a matter of when. So great question. Also, my buddy Chris Alexander piped in a couple of questions. One of his questions was about, does the length of a speaker cable make a difference? Not in the way that the length of a guitar cable does. And, to Ivan's point, the longer the cable, the more it's actually going to roll off the high end. So, this is where using a buffer or one of the rigs that I'm going to be building is going to be incorporating some of the Mesa Boogie technology that enables you, if you're going to, for example, have a pedal board where you've got a delay running in the loop of an amp that's on the back line, well, potentially you have to run a pair of cables to and from your pedal board to the back line to run it in the loop, unless you've kind of got it sitting right next to you, right? So in that sort of instance, you absolutely want to, and that effects loop in the Boogie is buffered, but that doesn't mean it's expecting to have 30 feet of cable between whatever device you're sticking in the loop. And a great example of this is that my go-to jam when I'm kind of doing the Doug Doppler thing is down inside there is a Axe FX3, and my smaller rig is a little FM3 that I'll use in the loop of this, or my little fly rig is actually this little guy, which is the Mark 525, which is the most savage little amp in the world. Just sounds crazy. And my go-to jam for that is, let's do this in the right application. There we go. Oh, you can't see it. Bummer. Over in that rack down below that little guy there, which is Boogie's Revolver. It's their rotary speaker. Is a Mesa Boogie, or sorry, is a Seymour Duncan Power Stage 700 power amp, and so that will kind of fit down inside the. I put that inside my. Ironically, I put that inside my Helix backpack. The other thing is that there. Oh, there we go. They have now come out with the. This is the 100 watt stereo Seymour Duncan power amp, so that will also fit in the cubby. And kind of what I like to do is bring a cab clone IR for the. That has the first generation of cab clone in it, but it's not the cab clone IR. So I will bring one of my. Right there, I have a pair of cab clone IRs, and that'll also fit in the Helix backpack. And that enables me to then just take a feed off the back of that amp, choose whatever Boogie cabinet that I want to use, or just use that as a reactive load box, go out of that box into either the FM3 or the FM9, both of which I own, and in turn, I can control different things from the floor with the FM, both of them, but I like to actually have the FM9 for the larger version of the rig on the floor in front of me, so I can turn different things on and off, different delays and reverbs, but running in the loop. And in turn, so what's going to happen is I'm going to come out of the amp into cab clone IR. I'm going to use that as a reactive load on the amp, but when I come out of the back of cab clone IR, I'm not going to use the actual IR that's in there. I'm taking what they call the drive feed, and that will go out into the into whatever fractal unit I'm using. That's where I get my stereo left and right. That in turn goes out into the two inputs of the stereo power amp, and I'll run that into one or more stereo Boogie cabinets. So I'm a bit of a tinkerer, but it enables me to kind of really leverage whatever gear that I'm using and have more volume than any human being really should. Which I find, there we go, Sean Varley, come on. So Sean has his same guitar, and just love it. Yeah, yes, they're definitely trying to make it scream rather than sing, but really love your flute. Yeah, bro, thank you. I wish I was that good. You know, the great thing is whatever it is we spend our time doing, we get better at them. Thank you for the kind words. I'm sure your thing sounds great. So, and you know, you gotta, you know, if you need a Phillips 3-inch screwdriver ain't going to get the job done, and vice versa. So the tools for what we use, and interestingly enough, I don't think there's a single guitar in the room here that has just a volume control. Yes, there is. Hang on a second. Yeah, there is. I know where it is. Hang on a second. And interestingly enough, it is the most metal-looking guitar of the bunch. Come here. Where are you? There we go. There we go. Yeah. Come on. There we go. No, I was wrong. What happened is it got the knob. What's that falling over there? Got the knobs taken off of it. At some point, speed knobs came off, but it does have a tone control. So this is an old Kramer, and so it does have a tone control. I had forgotten that it did, but the point being, not that you can see it, but there's the volume and there's the tone. But you know, there are a number of guitars kind of this vintage that kind of have, you know, this type of a vibe that wouldn't have had a tone control. So totally feel you. All right, Sean, awesome, great to see you. Brett, what's going on? Having an extra IEC will also save your bass player when he forgets his. There was I can't share it because there were a couple of politically incorrect images, but it basically was showing the different members of the band after the show with their hookups. But the bass player one was tragic. Poor bass players, they get beat up on so much. Also handy to keep a small kit of tools for you and your drummer who will need to tighten all kinds of stuff. So one of the things that I almost always will take with me, and just because I've moved a few things around. One of the great things about there, yeah, I know where it is. About the setup here is that, there we go. Everything has a place to live. Come here. So this. These guys are great. The Ernie Ball Musician Toolkit, they actually gave these away at Petrucci Camp. I absolutely love this. The only thing, those guys at Ernie Ball, I'm no longer holding Pinky, but basically the adjuster that you need for the saddle on a traditional Strat, that Allen wrench isn't in there. I was like, really? So that's the one thing about that. But what's neat about this is I will always either bring this with me to the gig, either down in the cubby there, or I at least will make sure that there's an extra set of clippers that are in the cubby of one of my guitar cases. You just never know what's going to go wrong. So yes, and oh my word. So Manny from Seattle, hi Dop. Hey, how you doing? Pleasure. Excellent. All right, Eric, excellent. Mark, what's going on, Maestro? Great to see you. Hello. I love this Kramer. Hang on. I've got a cable around here. Where'd I put the other end? I have no idea if it's in tune or not. Oh, that's right. It's got a little bit of a short in it somewhere. Got to send this off to Gary. Oh, yeah, by the way, kind of the universal, I think it's at the jack here. Not think. But the fist. And by the way, as a testament as to why you want to have a second guitar, and why, just in case nobody ever told you this, you always want to run your cable back in underneath your strap, because one day it will happen. If you don't, if you step on the cable, and I've actually had a cable fail that was already tucked around there, but I stepped and I turned and the cable failed internally, not at the jack, but actually kind of something happened inside the length of the cable there. So there's that. I don't think I finished answering Chris's question about the length of the speaker cable. First of all, an instrument cable, I've never had an instance where the sound person went, "Hey Doug, can I get some more trouble?" It just never happened. But one of the things that happens, the longer the cable, the more it starts to roll off the top end, and it will roll off some of the dynamics. If you're playing with a really distorted sound, or one of the things that I used to do is that I used to have a wah-wah that I would actually sometimes just bring with me, because it did take a little bit of the top end. So if I was using a rented JCM 800 or 900, sometimes there's a frequency that you just can't get at in the EQ there. So what was neat about keeping that wah-wah in line is it just filtered that particular frequency out. And so I was purposely taking a little bit of the top end out. So there are some little hacks like that are helpful. Mark, lucky you. Hello, great to see you, my friend. Always a pleasure. So this is an interesting thing. I bought an FU Tone trem blocker to convert it from free floating to down only. My Wolfgang has me liking the down only mode. So there's a great conversation about all of that. So the number 1V here, I absolutely love this top-mounted Floyd Rose, except for the fact that because it's not running on your traditional routed in the back, and we're still working on the back plate here. We'll get that on there one day. Or maybe not. Maybe that's just the thing. It's like there's no back. Well, there's a back plate. It's just held on with tape. The idea that, so this guitar only dives, doesn't pull up. But this particular tremolo, kind of one of the deficiencies, it just wouldn't stay in tune floating. So the funny thing is that I'm going to actually have a little conversation, because FU Tone makes replacement blocks, so you can kind of beef up the backside of your traditional Floyd and get a little bit more sustain, and it will change the tone. It's kind of like the equivalent, if you will, of kind of having a brass nut. Oh, thank you very much, Marino. How you doing? Mariano, excuse me. Pleasure, and thank you very much. Really, there's a lot of work that went into kind of getting this place finally at a place where I can actually start shooting some video. All right. Yeah. Oh, got it, Bobby. Yeah, sorry. I every so often I jump around. You've probably never noticed that. So the classic blues thing, I am shocked that you don't do that, and no wonder you're tensing up. So the deal is in playing blues. Anytime I instantly start thinking about doing something blues, the first thing that's going to happen is my thumb's going to come around the top of the neck. And conversely, if I'm thinking about nice open string there, don't want to do it. But as soon as I get to bendy land, and then I go back to legato or pick. But classic, anything that's kind of in kind of classic rock realm, absolutely, just, it's not even a second thought. Thumb's got to be around the top of the neck because it gives you that leverage. So if you're finding you're fatiguing trying to spend some time with the thumb around the top of the neck. It will change your life. And I would encourage you, again, kind of my point, go out and watch some of your favorite guys. Kind of go watch that thumb. It'll be around the top of the neck. And one of the biggest challenges I've got, that V is a total jam machine, Mark. Crazy guitar. Oh, I wasn't in the bridge. There you go. I was in the number. So the crazy thing is, this is kind of like all my favorite guitars put together. So that is a. If I want to back off on. Probably can't hear that much of a difference when I'm rolling off the tone control of the bridge. Where that begins to make more of a difference is that little subtlety for me is important. But and then the number two pickup selection, rather, number two. In any case, yeah, this guitar is just nuts. It's kind of all the things that I love. The Floyd, I wish it pulled up, but it just won't stay in tune when it's set up like that because, again, it doesn't have springs on the back to really kind of provide the sort of counterbalance. The FU tone stuff is great. I don't use any of it simply because I don't have any and I haven't had any of it. The interesting thing about the D-Tuna And it's a funny conversation. There's a video of Edward using the D-tuner, and it's a great piece of technology, except for the fact that when you go back and forth between the two, it doesn't stay in tune. You have to adjust it. The funny thing is Eddie's playing, I think he's in drop D, and then he brings it back up to E, and he hits it, and he goes, oh, and he has to go to the fine tuner. I'm like, it even happens to Eddie. So just know that if you use the drop tuner, which is great, you're just going to almost always have to retune just a little bit because it doesn't work perfectly. It's just kind of like that. But so here's the thing: is the right guitar? Oh, there we go. Hang on. The right guitar, when it's able to do that thing. It's the most glorious sound in the world. I'm just like, really? A guitar that is really kind of intended and designed to live that way, which arguably kind of none of the Eddie guitars, Eddie never pulled up on the bar. Neil Sean's, all his guitars are pushed down as well. But there are certain instruments that really, at one point, the funny thing is, we took it off. That's funny. We actually put a D-tuner on this guitar, and we pulled it off. Because I did a gig in Vegas. So I have to talk about the gig preparation before we're done. And because I was doing some stuff that was, I think this guitar was set up in E flat, and I also had it set up with the D tuner so I could go to a drop D when I needed to, and I really missed the ability on this guitar. That's the sound of that particular song. So this guitar is very important for me in its ability to do that. And kind of in some ways, the V there is kind of my go-to guitar. And in some ways, if I kind of had a thought of a quote-unquote signature instrument, that's it. But because it really doesn't do that, this guitar really, that floating bridge and... that rocking sound, I can imitate it with left hand vibrato. But it's not the same as being. It's close enough, so if I need to play it live on that guitar, I can fake it enough. But those little notes. Love that. All right. Am I in the mission? No. So this is just the Helix going out in the power cabs, and it's just the room mic. Last question. Sure. You never have to do a last question. So did I ever try the Quilter Lab BN300 speaker? I have the Quilter Labs head. There we go. Hold on a second. Going off frame again. I think it's just a thing that I like. I think I enjoy doing it. Let's put this guitar back for a second. There we go. So Quilter makes a range of great products. They're a great company. Really nice people. I ended up going out to dinner with them one night at a NAMM show and had a lovely time. So this is their tone block, which is the 202. And this is a great piece of technology. It's great for making your modeling loud. There's an FR mode on the front of this right there. Or you can just use the built-in tone stack that sounds a lot like a Marshall. Really, really well-designed piece of gear. And there's a cabinet that came along with that the Quilter folks sent that may or may not be the cabinet you were talking about. Goodbye pork pie hat. There you go. Come on. Any updates on the record? Yeah. I'm in video production, which means I haven't played one of my songs besides right now for a week. But that's okay. Thank you, Zach. The Helix and Power Cab. It's a really neat sound. And again, you're just hearing the sound kind of in the room, which actually is in many ways almost as much of a testament as actually miking it up. It's like, it just kind of got a vibe to it. So I have not tried every cabinet, because I think the Quilter folks make a couple of different cabinets, but their stuff is great. So Mark, again, that's that stuff, but this amp is just it's everything that I could want an amp to be, and then some. So yeah. Oh, look at that. You're chatty today. Okay. All right. So gig preparation. Gosh darn it. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to be up at the crack of dawn playing these songs, because kind of my thing is I rehearse. The worship team is going to do a rehearsal, but I'm up doing that. So, unlike your traditional rock gig, there are actually charts. And so I will write, and this is great. When I got ready to sit in with Larry Mitchell at the NAMM show last year, not 2024, I kind of wrote out some charts for myself, because I needed, sometimes it's really good to take all the information running around your head. And I was also at Ronnie Lee's jam, which is where I met Taj Farrant. And so I had to learn got to learn 3 or 4 songs of Taj's and Larry's songs. So at this point, I've got all this music running around my head. I'm like, I need to chart this stuff. So one of the things that's great to do is just write down across the top. So you've got I for intro, and then RF, that's not my lingo, but it's what was kind of in this application called Planning Center. That must be refrain 2 times, V1, V2, verse 1 and verse 2. Why you would want to have, instead of writing VX2, that is a verse times 2, is there may be some nuance around the difference between what's played or what's sung in verse 1 and verse 2. So here's one of the most important things I can tell you. If you're learning new material, and you're a guitar player, make mental and written cues of what's happening in the lyrics so you can use those as anchors in the song. It's a really valuable tool. And there's a song here that we're doing that's just got this wacky chord. It's in 6/8, and the time is very strange. And so, the neat thing about, sometimes these charts are grossly inaccurate, and every so often they get it really right, and they'll put the chord, as opposed to a traditional chart, they'll just put the chord over the lyric. and just listening for what word as a reminder of like, I changed to this chord over that word. It's a great way, again, to create an anchor in there. And so the neat thing is that, having this stuff on a chart is important. Before I actually print out the charts, I'll take whatever it is I'm listening to again, whether it's Taj Farrant's song, Larry's songs, and I'll just play them and loop them. So I'm just kind of living with them. Traditionally the place, if I'm playing with somebody at the NAMM show, and the van ride down there, because I always like to ride down there. It's kind of nice to kind of sit in the car and kind of clear your head. I spend a lot of time in this room. And so I'm always thinking about whatever the next thing is that I'm trying to get out the door that has my focus, or wasting a bunch of time on Facebook. Not that you would be a waste of time on Facebook, but just like, oh my word, there's another reel. It's like a giant waste of time. Like I said last week, I looked at my history, and literally the whole screen was Facebook. And I went, time wasted. And it's good sometimes to just kind of have a little mental wasabi, but I kind of went, that is too much. So it's good to have a place that you can go. For me, the van is like clear my thoughts. Also, the shower is a great place for me to just kind of, especially before I do a live stream, kind of gather some thoughts of what I want to do. And that's a huge vehicle for me. So I encourage you, if you don't have a place that you can kind of go and find your inner reset button, find one or create one, whatever it is that you need to do. Dim the lights if you have to. It's like, okay, I got this. But the thing is that there I'll listen to the songs over and over in repeat, and that for me is very valuable. I do the same thing with my own material, by the way, as another aside. Listen to it if I haven't finished the melody, or I'm trying to make sense of something, I'll just loop it and just live with the song. So then I come back, I'm more immersed in it. So that's hugely valuable. One of the other things about a body of songs is that, again, once you've done your preparatory listening, it's important. Gosh, I hope I have my mic on. There we do. Oh, somebody's texting me. Okay. That you then, as you begin to go to play through them, if you have the benefit of a chart, or having charted something yourself, it's always good to just sit with the chart without your instrument and just kind of go, all right, because that way you're kind of listening and road mapping, so that then when you add the next degree of adding your guitar into it, then you kind of, that chart has already had the transference process without the disadvantage of going, oh, let my fingers do the walking, because your focus changes to this as opposed to that chart is everything that I need to know if I need to make some changes because maybe something's not charted right, or it is exactly right. That's my roadmap. And quite often I'll actually create a little piece of paper that's a cheat sheet with a little something, if I'm playing kind of a mainstream gig where having a music stand, and tomorrow morning I will do everything possible not to have a music stand. And I'll have a little piece of paper that I'll pull out of my pocket that's just a little reminder of the form, or the one or two chords that I like to miss. And one of the other vehicles that I like to use is I'll loop a section. That way, or I'll loop, it is called, either tops and tails, finishing one song, going to another, especially if you've got to dial up a different preset, kind of what you're doing. I don't play with a capo, but if it's a capo moment, practicing the last two bars of one song and the first two bars of the next, and just looping that sequentially, capo, move. But that sort of preparation, such that you're not kind of caught by surprise, and you're just, you're always thinking, like, if you're gonna capo 3, capo 5. Again, I with the exception of using different sounding acoustic guitars, I never capo. The advantage of using it with two different acoustic guitars is if you find that one's a little bit bassier and the other's a little bit brighter, I sometimes find that using a capo on the one that's a little bit bassier and then playing a different chord shape further up the neck makes them sound less disparate, if that's what you're looking to do. If you're trying to get them left and right, and the one is like, it's really bassy over here and it's not really bassy over here, you're like, well, you can't make the brighter guitar sound less bassy, generally speaking, but you can make the bassier guitar sound brighter by capoing it and playing further up the neck. It's a great hack. So there is that. Steve Greenleaf, hello, my dear friend. Great to see you. Hello. That's a great question. What software is available for Android-based tablet for charts? There is a great application called OnSong, and they are the go-to chart application, not only for the house of worship, but for people who live and die by charts in cover bands. So if your band has to know 500 songs and have them on an iPad as opposed to a ream binder, OnSong is it. OnSongApp.com, and they have both a I'm 99% positive OnSong app. Hold on. OnSong Android. OnSong app Android. Is there an OnSong app for Android? Hang on just a second. It's a great question. Download on the App Store. They do not have an Android footprint. So, Brett, OnSong, yes. So I know those guys. Hey, Scott, what's going on, man? Great to see you. Hello, 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 hello. So the thing is in this particular instance, OnSong is just, it's great. It's the transpositional skills. It's just, there's nothing better. And it's just great. There we go. Hey, Brad, again, 300 songs. It makes it so easy to bring up songs. It is crazy good. And you know, it's just great. And what's also neat is I know those guys. They're lovely. And it's always nice when the developers / the people who make the gear, you're actually like, they're great people. Jason Kitchline is the founder and kind of the lead developer. And they're constantly, first of all, because anything that's iOS, they're constantly making changes to iOS. But he's really not only chasing whatever the folks are doing over at in Apple world, but they're also constantly upgrading that app all the time. There we go. Sean, what's going on? My entire cover band. Come on, bring it in. There we go. It's going to be, there we go. My entire cover band uses OnSong. We share charts. The drummer uses for tempo and guide on his iPhone. I use with iPad and my computer for updates. So here's the other thing about it is you can link all the iPads, which is great. So going off screen again. There are a couple of things that you can do. What a great, I love you guys. Here we go. So I have a couple of go-to things that I'm really into. So a little bit earlier, you might have noticed, and I wasn't doing it to show off, but I must admit I felt like I was showing off a little bit, that I can do this. Look, Ma, no hands. Now, these two cameras aren't matched because they're actually, in this moment, they're actually being used for actually capturing onto cards. But I did a little touch-up on this camera this morning just to make it betterer. But the thing about all of this business is that I'm using my one step down here. Hello. Using my one step. Oh, come on, come here. I'm using my one step, which is wireless. Flippin' A, works on Bluetooth. But also I went and grabbed the AirTurn Ped. So there's all this kind of wireless, I should say Bluetooth wireless connectivity for controlling these things. And with OnSong, you can have the master chart bearer. And so when they turn pages, everybody else's pages will turn. So it's really, really, really smart. And I think you do the equivalent of kind of set up a micro network, I think. I remember something talking about that. Phil, always a pleasure, my friend. There we go, and lyrics. So the other thing is that if by chance you're a worship person, one of the things you can also do is take the output of that and project this. And there are few churches that actually know to do this. I absolutely loathe worship leaders with their face down in their iPads, or like blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, blah blah blah. It's like a swimmer coming up for a breath, except it's for the chart. You can't. Oh, I'm going to go there. You can't take people someplace you haven't been yourself. We'll just leave it there. So if you don't know the song, you don't know the song. But one of the things you can do is just if it's maybe a new song, you can project the lyrics onto the back wall. That is, say you have a projector that is actually projecting them onto the back wall. So if you need to kind of like, I'm looking like I'm having this great moment, but I'm really reading off the back wall, OnSong is perfect for that. Uh, OnSong will link with your iTunes so you can view the chart and play the song to practice. I have hundreds songs on it. Yeah, it's just great. All right. Hey, I start teaching it in a little while. And I have a little bit of prep that I want to do for that. But this has been, the funny thing is, I like to think that I'll have some sort of strategy a day or so before the show. And I've been busy in video production land, and I didn't. First of all, thank you. Second of all, we're a community, and this is one of the things that there's a new music educator that I'm making friends with, a guy named Marco, and he's got a course that I invariably at some point I will offer an affiliate to. Okay, it's not in that bundle of stuff. Hang on a second. Synergy of our guitar community. Isn't that lovely though? I mean, it kind of makes it special. This is what I love about the guitar camps. If by chance you haven't been to one of the guitar camps, you just got to go. It's just the camaraderie, and like if you went to camp as a kid, some of those sometimes lifelong friendships, it's kind of like that for grown-ups, and it's just amazing. All right, Marco, there we go. Marco, oh, come on, there we go. That's it. Marco Tafelli. All right, come on, let's get the other link. There we go. Marco Tafelli, MarcoTafelli. That's how we met. Absolutely, Scott. Come on. And the thing is, and I think this is one of the most interesting things about these camps. And by the way, you wouldn't be the only person I met at one of these camps. Hint, hint. Eric, did we meet at the guitar camp? Did we know each other beforehand? Gosh darn it. So the thing about these is that, Scott's a serious guitar player, also a gear demonstrator, but it's never kind of like, hey, Michael, what's going on? It's never kind of like, oh, I can play that lick better. People are so warm, and it's amazing experience. So, in many ways we met at G4. There we go. And so, you that stays with you after the camps, and we kind of all know each other largely on Facebook. It's really an unexpected outcome. And honestly, when I did the first G4 that I did was in Cambria like 10 years ago, and you expect to go to a camp and you expected. That's kind of funny. That's a good plug. Oh, that's hilarious. You go to the camp. First of all, the first camp everybody goes to, you kind of go, okay, is it going to be, a bunch of dudes, oh, impress me, and it's so not that. But what's been even better is as this progresses along, and Brett, and the clan, there's a gathering of people that meet up at these camps, and it's really. Honestly, at the risk of getting a little gooey, it's exceedingly touching to just kind of see how welcoming the people are, and the way that feeling kind of goes on long after the camp. I think in many ways, I think people love the experience of being up close with a Steve Vai and a Joe Satriani and a Paul Gilbert and a John Petrucci. But the lingering part of the camp, I think, for many of us, is these kind of what are lifelong relationships that are they're for me every bit as immersive, because the camps are described as immersive. They're every bit as immersive as the actual kind of intensity of the camps are, and I just love that. And so that we get a chance to hang out. So long story short, Bobby, we kind of all inform each other, right? And I think that's such a valuable piece of this, because, as I'm working on the 15-minute fundamentals, the information you guys gave me last week, again, the ongoing questions that people have about guitar rigs informs me about content that I'm going to make for the YouTube channel, and it just allows me to do a better job. So I have the privilege of having been doing this for so many years and having had some interesting relationships with so many different manufacturers, thanks to people like Andrew Monica, I'm able to tell that story in a unique way. But I could be just sitting here on my own, kind of twiddling my thumbs, as opposed to have the ability, as opposed to having the privilege of being able to share things that I hope will be of value to people. So thank you, but thank you. So that said, I get to teach guitar today. And so, Nandini, couldn't agree more. I met you at G4 too. So grateful for that camp. And so Nandini is one of many favorite students, because I can't say I have favorite students because they're all favorite students, but worked so hard and has made so much progress and is so passionate about the guitar. And that's the great thing. I was like, we could be passionate about knitting, and I guess that's cool, and crochet and all of that, but we get to be passionate about guitar. The gear, the playing, the studying, the talking, the informing, the creativity. I mean, we're very, very lucky. And the great thing is that there are way more people that are into music than crochet. Nothing against the crochet community, but we're kind of lucky that of all the things we could have chosen or chose us to fall in love with, we got pretty lucky. All right, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great one, and thanks again for hanging out. What a pleasure, what a privilege, what a joy, and can't wait until we get a chance to do it again.